A bottle of dark red passata, smooth, pure, and purely Italian. What makes this tomato sauce both a traditional icon cherished in every Italian kitchen and a global product found in every international supermarket? And why can just one humble ingredient go from rural dining tables to delicate plates in Michelin-starred restaurants? Could there be a secret hidden behind that glass layer that you've never known? No one thinks that the culinary icon of Italy would originate from America. Tomatoes were only introduced to Europe after the 16th century, initially as ornamental plants. They were once called pomodoro, golden apple, because people thought they were poisonous and only used them for decoration. It wasn't until the 18th century that tomatoes truly entered the Italian kitchen, and it wasn't until after World War II that they were standardized as the main ingredient of today's red sauce. So since when did Italians decide to turn the tomato, a foreigner, into a national product? And what makes a soft, watery, easily bruised fruit an ideal ingredient for industrial production on a scale of millions of tons? The answer lies in the tomato variety, something that few people pay attention to on the label. Unlike tomatoes eaten raw, those used for passata mainly belong to two special lines, San Marzano and Roma. Both varieties bred to suit industrial processing. They have thick flesh, few seeds, low water content, thin skin, and most importantly, they ripen uniformly in clusters. This is crucial in the industry. The tomatoes must ripen at the same time over a large area so that machines can harvest, press, and package them all at once. There can be no hand-picking of each individual fruit, as in the old tradition. Tomatoes are no longer chosen for taste. Tomatoes are chosen because they are easy to peel, easy to cook, easy to standardize. But how do you ensure that hundreds of hectares of tomatoes will ripen at the right time, year after year? In Emilia-Romagna or Campania, the sauce granaries of Italy, people don't just grow tomatoes, they design the harvest season. With drip irrigation systems and satellite temperature monitoring, tomatoes are programmed to ripen simultaneously on the exact day the factory requires. Sometimes the decision doesn't come from the farmer, but from the buyer, the factories that own the entire supply chain. This makes one wonder, is the tomato still a product of the soil, or has it become a data unit within a production plan scheduled down to the minute? And then, each tomato enters the relentless production chain. As soon as it reaches ideal ripeness, it is harvested by machine, poured onto conveyor belts, and transported directly to the factory, where the fate of millions of tons of raw material will be decided. From July to September, in Emilia-Romagna in the north and Campania in the south of Italy, the tomato fields turn a strangely vibrant red. Not patchy, not scattered, but all at once, as if nature has just been reset by someone. In less than 60 days, Italy processes nearly 6 million tons of tomatoes. Behind that number is a massive operation where agricultural land, regulatory technology, and industrial production plans merge. But what is really happening during that fiery red harvest season? Once ripe, tomatoes cannot wait. They only retain their best color, flavor, and texture for 12 hours after leaving the vine. If this time is exceeded, the acidity increases, the flesh begins to break down, and the red color gradually dulls, no longer meeting standards. Therefore, harvesting machines run day and night, almost non-stop. Giant harvesters sweep through each row, with a rough sorting system right on the spot. Green fruits are pushed back down to the ground. Only ripe red fruits are sucked into containers. Each hour, one production line can process hundreds of tons of tomatoes. Each field has a specific hourly quota, not only to ensure quality, but also to match the schedule with the downstream operation. At this point, the tomato is no longer a fruit. It is a unit of raw material that is scheduled, calibrated, and whose survival time is counted down. The trucks carrying tomatoes will immediately line up, following the predetermined route to the factory, where the high-speed industrial processing procedure is waiting. So what happens when the tomatoes that just left the fields a few hours ago arrive? A slow cooking process like tradition or a high-speed industrial system, where does the greatest value? From the truck, the tomatoes are poured directly onto the conveyor belt. No storage, no waiting. At large factories in Emilia-Romagna or Parma, the entire processing line is designed to digest thousands of tons of raw material every day. A giant machine, precise to the minute. The tomatoes are poured into huge washing tanks. The water is not just for cleaning off dirt, it's also the first quality check. Any fruit that floats, meaning hollow inside, rotten, will be separated automatically. Each factory has its own standards for water temperature, soaking time, even the level of swirl in the washing flow, because scrubbing too hard will break the tomato skin, losing juice prematurely. Who would have thought that even the washing water could affect the sauce's viscosity? The tomatoes are then passed through a steam or hot water chamber for only a few dozen seconds, just enough to make the skin peel off without cooking the flesh. This is a delicate balancing point. If the heat is too high, the tomatoes overcook and lose their structure. If it's too low, the skin doesn't peel, making it less smooth later. Could peeling at the right time not only be a technique, but a perfect metaphor for this industry? Intervention without leaving a trace? Next, the tomatoes are crushed by rotating shafts, then filtered through stainless steel mesh, removing seeds, skin, and fibrous parts. But not filtering as thoroughly as possible is better. Premium producers often retain some fine tomato pulp, believing that's where the richest aroma is stored. Conversely, mass-market brands filter more thoroughly, creating a uniform texture, but with less flavor. So which part is the essence of the tomato? The smooth, easy-to-swallow part, or the slightly chunky part that makes people have to chew to remember? Passata can be raw, ground, or concentrated. Concentration is when water is removed by low heat in a vacuum environment, preserving aroma and color without cooking too quickly. Some places use multi-stage concentrators, divided into temperature layers, to extract the desired viscosity without boiling the tomatoes. Sophisticated factories even adjust the brick's level, natural sugar content, to an accuracy of 0.1 units. More notably, some cheap industrial passata batches may have their color enhanced with concentrated lycopene extracted from tomatoes or natural carotene to maintain the Italian red look, even if the raw materials are substandard. Since when has tomato sauce been measured in laboratory units? And does this purity still carry the soul of the cook? Leave your opinion so we can discuss it together. Perhaps few people think that the identity of a product lies in the container. But with passata, the sauce considered the essence of Italian cuisine, bottles are not just packaging, they are a declaration. After concentration, the sauce will be hot-filled into bottles, or sterilized separately, and then cold-filled. The type of bottle, glass or plastic, not only affects preservation, but also positions the segment. Glass jars are for premium lines, evoking a sense of tradition, and are reusable. Plastic bottles are easier to produce and more convenient, but are usually associated with more filtered products in the lower price segment. Labels may say 100% Italian, traditional passata, sauce without additives. But in reality, the difference lies in how each factory decides to allow how much tomato soul to remain in the bottle. And there's something not everyone knows. There are batches of passata that are pre-processed, peeled and canned in China, and then imported back to Italy to be labeled Made in Italy. Not only that, but this industry was once fertile ground for mafia organizations like Camorra and 'Ndrangheta, especially in the south. They controlled seasonal labor, transportation chains, and even manipulated raw material sources. That's why many Italians call this industry oro rosso, red gold, precious, lucrative, but also full of disputes. No product has ever been promoted as traditional, but relies entirely on repeatability, calculation, and machine-based fine-tuning as much as Italian tomato sauce. It doesn't need creativity. On the contrary, the more it resembles the previous batch, the smoother, more standard, and better it is. So finally, what is tradition here? Is it the flavor, Is it the cooking method, or is it that feeling reprogrammed by industry, but evoking the very nostalgia that people want to hold on to? And that is the most sophisticated thing about this industry. It's not the operations in the factory that determine the flavor, but how they make you believe that inside that bottle is a realm of memories you don't want to lose. Not everyone knows that in many rural parts of Italy, tomato sauce is still made as a ritual. Every summer, usually at the end of August, the whole family gathers to make passata together. Some wash the tomatoes, some cook, some press, some bottle. Some families still use the same glass bottles from 30 years ago. The metal lids have tarnished, but they are considered an irreplaceable part of the memory. Italians call it La Giornata della Salsa, the sauce day, not just to store food for the whole year, but to retain the feeling of connection with the season, with the land, with each other. Why does something as simple as tomato sauce make an entire generation want to return to the old kitchen, just to taste their mother's summer flavor again? Perhaps because tomato sauce is not just made from tomatoes, but also from memories. Just one spoonful of authentic passata, and people can hear their mother stirring the sauce, see the sunlight shining through the kitchen window, and smell the summer of years gone by. In a fast-paced world, that seemingly simple sauce is a way to touch time, childhood, and the silent love in every family meal. In contrast to the home kitchen, in Michelin-starred restaurants in Italy, passata is no longer food to be stored, but a base for storytelling. In haute cuisine, tomato sauce is not allowed to have any off flavors. No garlic, no onion, no oregano. Only tomato, salt, and a drop of olive oil. Everything must be so pure that it provides a background without overpowering. Here, passata is considered the origin of Italian umami, a foundation, like dashi in Japanese cuisine, but carrying the essence of sun, earth, and the spirit of Southern Europe. And just like in rural kitchens, in restaurant kitchens, passata is never overprocessed. Every drop must carry a reason for existence. A bottle of tomato sauce, seemingly simple, turns out to be the meeting point of an entire complex system. It is a product of modern technology, but sold with the image of tradition. It is a global food, but always tries to connect with the earthy smell of some Italian countryside in the consumer's memory. And strangely enough, that very contradiction is what makes Italian tomato sauce special. Because in this world, some things survive not because of absolute truth, but because of their ability to retain the feeling that they once were true. Perhaps what makes the identity of Italian passata is not just the tomatoes, but its ability to make people remember something they never lived through, but always want to believe they belong to. How many agricultural secrets are hiding behind everyday products? And are we understanding correctly? Or are we just believing what we want to believe? Continue to follow us to discover the little-known, but should-be-known, things about the agricultural world that feeds us every day.